tell you something, brother. Well, Scott Steiner, dude, I've got the most power in this business. 24-inch pythons, the largest arms in the world. And the power of Hulkamania running wild on you, brother.
Well, Hulk, I've got a friend of mine and a brother of mine that want to say hi to you. Oh, Terry, my boy, that's cute, dear, but I have the power of the pencil, and I'm riding you out of this script.
Mr. Barnett, no!
Oh, my boy, now that's a lot better. Hola, amigos, it's Will here from Will's Custom Figures, coming at you today with a big, bad breakdown of none other than WWF and WCW legends. People from the Hall of Fame, Billy Robinson, Jim Barnett, Karl Malone, and of course, Norman Smiley. So sit back and relax, guys, while I talk you through how and why I made these figures that are currently a work in progress and all the details in between. And let's start with these two WCW alumni, of course, none other than the one and only Karl Malone and, of course, Norman Smiley, looking absolutely brilliant here. So the reason I start with these two is because, as you can clearly tell, they are indeed a work in progress. I like to do these videos every so often to show you how I'm going about creating these figures. Now, let's start here with good old Norman Smiley. Now, with this figure, one of the specific things I needed to get into this action figure was that the arms would move. For anybody that's familiar with Norman Smiley, he would do this thing in the 90s, which is, was it called the Norman Smiley wiggle, like the booty wiggle, where he would move his arms. Of course, the original LOD, Road Warrior Hawk, didn't do this, so I've actually used two Rowdy Roddy Piper hands. They're actually specifically the left hands, I believe, of Roddy Piper. And as you can see, I've put magnets in there, and magnets in here, and just snaps on. So a nice little bit of articulation there and something that was important. Now with this hand, this is indeed actually another left hand. So this is the left hand, this is the left hand. What I've done is I've sawn off the thumb here. I've created a new thumb and then I've shortened this finger to make it look like a little pinky. And as you can see, he does what I've been tasked to do. He does the booty wiggle. Now, the rest of it, of course, he would wear his football jersey, shoulder pads, and the lower half is a little bit simpler. So that's the next step. I've also cut off the jumper mechanism at the back and glued it in place because there is a piston that goes through the center and would move the head up and down of Hawk. Of course, we don't want that to happen to good old Norman Smiley. So get ready, guys, because you got a finished version of this coming very, very soon. Now, during the sculpting process and the drilling and attaching the head, this ear actually cracked off, so I've hand sculpted this on using none other than this beautiful stuff, Milliput clay. Very, very helpful. There's two parts inside this box. You mix both parts together, a cream and a sort of greeny grey looking one. And then as you can see, I've used that here. It doesn't need to be cooked in the oven. A lot of the clay that I use is actually, like with the neck here, it's super sculpy clay. So that needs to dry in an oven, whereas the Milliput is really good for doing your smaller amendments like thumbs, like joining the wrists. And here we go, guys. Here is none other than the absolutely classic 90s version of Karl Malone. Now, you're probably asking me, what base, what figures, what parts have you used to create this figure? You can clearly tell, guys. Here is a Hulk Hogan set of legs and a Papa Shango upper torso. I could not be more happy with how this is looking so far. The progress is going really, really well. And as you can see here, here is Papa Shango, the body that I've used to create this Karl Malone upper torso. Now, as you can see, there is an arm missing on this part that I've brought in, and I've actually used it on this Papa Shango upper body for Karl Malone. Now I've attached it using a magnet. As you can see here, I can pull it on and off, which is really, really nice. I can move the other arm up and down. That's absolutely fine. The articulation's all good there. But on this right arm, it did actually break off. So using a magnet is a really, really good way of salvaging what is still a really, really good figure. A lot of people would probably chuck this in the bin, and certainly when I was younger or didn't customize action figures, it was something I would have potentially considered doing as well. You know, it looks ruined, but no, once you've added that magnet on there, it still does articulate nice. Now, this is going to be an absolutely phenomenal base for Karl Malone. It's quite a large, quite a long, quite a tall torso and set of legs. I'm just going to bring in the Hulk Hogan here. As you can see, this is indeed the set of legs that I'm using for Karl Malone. Very, very happy with how this is looking so far. And again, the magnet, just giving the articulation back there, it really, really does bring to life a custom figure, which if I super glue the arm, it wouldn't have the same level of articulation. And I don't think would quite have the same effect. Karl Malone, being from the NBA, you want that guy to be shooting hoops and ready to beat up some NWO team members. And here is none other than Scott Steiner on the left, Bret the Hitman Hart on the right. I thought I'd bring both of these in for a nice little size comparison. As you can see, this Bret Hart is absolutely destroyed. It has seen better days. The paintwork's horrific, but that's one of the absolute pleasures about getting to do this custom action figure project that I've just dedicated to the last 7 years or so of my life. It's getting to work on somebody like Bret and turning that into and refurbishing that into a sellable figure or something you want to display. Look at this Scott Steiner as well. You know, who'd have thought this was from the 90s, still in absolutely great condition, and I'm really, really pleased with how that's looking. Now, as you can see, Karl Malone standing a little bit taller than Norman Smiley and a little bit taller than Bret the Hitman Hart as well. And just a slightly different angle for you to have a look at the different heights. You can see Norman Smiley a little bit taller than Scott Steiner. Karl Malone, of course, a lot taller than Bret Hart. So I'm really, really happy with that, just as I intended. And I'm really, really pleased with the sizes and the scales. Scott Steiner should probably be a little bit taller. And here we go with none other than Billy Robinson. Now, as you can see here, I have indeed used a Hacksaw Jim Duggan body as the base. Unfortunately for me, I don't get to complete these figures. That's why the neck looks so shoddy and hasn't really been sculpted and added on there too well. I just did it for the purposes of this video so I could give you an idea of what I would do if I was actually finishing this. But my customer Colin, a very, very loyal customer of mine, thank you very much to him for commissioning me to work on this Billy Robinson head sculpt. He just wants the heads and he'll be doing his own customizing when they reach him in the post. I'll be getting this out later this week, but nevertheless, I have made a silicone mold and a resin cast of this head sculpt if anybody else wants one. Man, if only I could finish this. The Hacksaw Jim Duggan base really is absolutely brilliant. I've used it so many times. Oh, so here is a little bit of a demonstration as to what I would do if I was going to be finishing it. I would just attach the head on. This is really how I do it, regardless what the project is. Just making sure that the Super Sculpey clay, as you can see here, is firmly set, firmly attached onto the body. What I will show you in a moment is how I shave down the neck and make it a little bit thinner and more realistic. Now, a little bit into the history of Billy Robinson. He was born in 1938 in the UK. He's a master of catch wrestling. He wrestled in the AWA, NJPW. He even trained modern-day wrestler Josh Barnett. He influenced MMA and he's one of the best technical wrestlers ever. In addition to that, he also had a street fight with none other than Antonio Inoki, the Japanese legend. And from what I understood, he won. And he's a master of suplexes and backbreakers, a very inspirational guy. I think it's about time for a school photo. Let's see that smile, Billy Robinson. So bringing the paints in, Citadel Kislev Flesh, this is how I would be painting and the tones I'd be using as the base for finishing this figure. It's what I've used on the face as well. These are the kind of brushes, just fine brushes off Amazon that I'm using. And here is an example of how I would finish the neck for any of you other customizers out there. It's first and foremost most important to make sure the head is absolutely firmly and securely attached on, especially if you're going to be posting these around the world. Now, slowly over time, I'll start to remove the clay, just as you can see here. As I start to cut away, making sure I'm trying to blend it as best as I can always come back and try and perfect that at a later date and try and use my fingers and thumbs and other sculpting tools to blend it as much as possible, making sure the neck looks absolutely real. The more clay that you take off, the better, in my opinion. I used to have these big fat necks on my figures because I was really scared and a little bit worried that they would crack when shipping them abroad. Nevertheless, I've tried to master this technique over time. And one of the nice little techniques that I've learned here is the more surface area, the better. As you can see here, this is a technique that I've really tried to work hard on when attaching a head onto a body, and it's making sure that the clay that I'm using, the Super Sculpey, is blended in with the hair. As you can see on the left here, this would be really, really easy to paint brown and have it blend in quite naturally. You wouldn't be able to tell where the join was. And that brings me nicely onto my favourite custom in this set, none other than Jim Barnett. This is a gentleman from the USA. He was born in 1924 and he co-owned GCW, Georgia Championship Wrestling. He also spent time in WCW. He helped pioneer wrestling in Australia. In addition to that, the NWA, and of course, most notably, working with Vince McMahon Sr., Vince McMahon's father in the early days of the WWF, which later turned into the WWF, and then, of course, the WWE we know today. Now, this man absolutely pioneered the wrestling industry. He was one of the big backstage politicians and helped set up all of these companies. A little bit about him, though, he was so well respected and also feared, in addition to being one of the first openly gay people within the wrestling business. So, as mentioned again, the word pioneer keeps coming up over and over again. Now, as you can see for this figure, I have used the IRS body, and I'm so happy that I used that. If I were finishing this figure, again, this is just a head sculpt that I'll be posting out to my customer, my friend Colin. If I was finishing this, I would be using this IRS body 100% as a base. I'd be adding on the cuffs. I'd be adding on the sleeves of his outfit. I'd be adding on the jacket, bringing it down, covering up those very snazzy looking dungarees, and making sure this looked as real as possible. Now, here we go with a nice school photo, up close and personal, Mr. Barnett. This man reportedly made and also destroyed careers based on the start of this video, guys, based on the pencil. So a very influential human. Now, as you can see, the Super Sculpey clay has just been quickly fashioned on there and just stuck on there so I could actually show you what it would look like, the potential behind this figure if I were actually finishing him. Now, the head sculpt. I have indeed, like Billy Robinson, made a silicone mold and resin sculpt of this. This was a tricky one, I'm not going to lie. I spent a lot of time adding on extra layers and details of clay and smoothing them out and then making wrinkles. But most importantly, using Citadel paints like Kislev Flesh, Pale Flesh, Cadian Flesh Tone to highlight things like wrinkles and bags under the eyes. I'm bringing this video to a close, guys. What are my final reflections? Well, I cannot wait to get Karl Malone and Norman Smiley finished. These are going to be two absolutely phenomenal custom figures, and I'm really excited to show them off to you once they're finished. I'm going to get on the sculpting this evening, and I should have the video up on here on my channel in the next couple of weeks. I've loved working on this set, guys. So if you've liked what you've seen here today, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of this video and who you're most excited to see me finish. Please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or here on YouTube if you've been with me up until now. From myself, from this team, from Norman Smiley, I'll see you on the next one. Adios.